I'm not going to tell you a story. But I will tell you about a monster that lives about 5, maybe 10 miles east of here. There's a graveyard in between the two towns, this one and the one over, that they say a goat man lives in. Apparently there is an old, decommissioned, run-down school bus right at the edge of the graveyard. And they say that this goat man has horns, as you could imagine, hooves, very frequently they mention, but hands with claws, terrifies people. Some say it lives inside of the school bus. Some say no, it just lives around the graveyard. But who knows? But I'm not telling you a story. Instead, I'm Raku firing. It's going to take a while. It's been in the kiln for about, a little over an hour now. I started it a little bit too slowly, so it's going to take a little bit longer than normal. But it usually takes about an hour. I said about 45 minutes before, but that's rushing it. That's probably not a good idea. Especially with larger things like I'm doing here. Yeah, you don't want to rush it too much. So about an hour, 2 hours. So I'm relatively on par, but it's starting to show a little bit of a sheen on the surfaces. You saw when I was painting the glazes that they turned really flat white or flat colored really quickly. The moisture pulled out and it very quickly became a really flat surface. But once this heats up enough that it's basically fusing all the glass pieces together, it becomes a bit of a sheen to it. That means it's getting close. Now what I'm basically waiting for is for it to start glowing a little bit of orange sort of color from the things inside. That's really the sign to say that it's ready. Big challenge is not to burn off the mustache. And when I say don't burn off the mustache, I'm not kidding. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I've already burned off a bunch of hair on the back of my hand. That smelled lovely. That was when I was testing to see if it was high enough earlier. It wasn't high enough, but it was good enough to burn the hair. Still gonna take a little bit. I think it may be starting to glow, but I'm really hoping to look in on the sculpture to see if the glaze is starting to turn clear like it's supposed to, so that I can see some of that underglaze stuff that I was putting under there. I'm not sure I'll be able to tell. So I'm leaving it in a little bit longer, just in case. I've got a cylinder made by my student in there that theoretically should be okay. She made a nice lid for it, and typically you don't want to fire the lid on. Typically you do want to fire the lid on the vessel, so that if any shrinkage and moving things that they do might be the same. But it runs the risk of any kind of glaze possibly flowing down into that gap between the two and sealing that sucker up forever. I'm really crossing my fingers. I was really tempted to fire it separately, just in case. But I trust her, and I think she knows what she's doing well enough. It's just a matter of whether or not I can fire it well enough. And it's hard to control. Getting there. This is not for the fumes or anything. They're all burning off and causing the flame. That's not a big deal. But pretty soon, when I take those out of there with the heat gloves and the tongs, I'm going to throw them in here into this trash can that's filled with dried leaves and yard waste stuff like that. And it's going to burn the crap out of it. And it's going to make a lot of smoke. Even when I put the lid on it, it's still going to smoke quite a bit. So, because of that, I don't want to inhale any more smoke than I have to. Last time I did this, I tried it without the thing, and I swear to gosh, anything that you think is awesome, I swear to it. Somehow the wind decided to target me, no matter where I went. It directed the smoke at me. I went in circles everywhere and tried to avoid it, and it didn't matter at all. It just kept getting me. Not quite. I'm starting to see through the clear glaze just a little bit, but I don't think it's enough yet. It's a slow process, but it's a heck of a lot better than electric kiln. That, you just basically set it, walk away. It'll take like 14, 16 hours or something like that just to fire, and then you got to sit around and wait as it cools down slowly. That stuff sucks. Definitely not something to make a video of. Somebody must have by now, right? 24 hours kiln firing. You're staring at the thing just going click, click, click. what I get for starting it way too slowly for like the first 20, 30 minutes. I thought it'd be done by now. I was wrong. This is much more dramatic in the dark like this. It's a heck of a lot harder to tell if anything's actually glowing or if it's just the flames and the fire glow from inside. And no, this wasn't really planned to be a dramatic nighttime thing. I just ran out of time. So, what I'm probably going to do tomorrow is, I'll have to make sure it's not going to rain on everything and soak it. But I may leave the fire bricks and things out if it's going to stay dry tonight. And then fire the next round of pots tomorrow. Here it's hot. It ought to be ready by now, so I'm turning the heat up a little bit. As I'm looking at the camera here, it says that I've been filming for over 13 minutes now, so yeah, it's probably time. So, I'm turning the heat up because it should be able to manage that. But I've got to get it heated up enough to get that stuff clear, get it fused together nicely. But I can't go too much, otherwise badness. it's still taking some time. So I'll explain one of my big worries here. One, of course, is fusing the lid together. I don't want that to happen. Sometimes when you do fire them that way, they can stick even though there's no glaze in between them. Usually what you do is you just take a rubber mallet after it's cooled nicely and then very gently bump it as you go around. I use I said rubber mallet, but a wooden mallet is pretty good. You don't want metal because it's very likely to break it. So just use a little wooden mallet so it gets a little shock through it and kind of release any little bit of clay holding together. Shouldn't be too much. But if glaze gets in between them, that's a whole nother problem. The other problem that I'm really hoping to avoid here, and I don't know if it will, is because I have to take that sculpture, that tiki guy, and tilt him up like this. He's not laying flat like he's supposed to on a table. So with the heat, it might let him sag and get to a shape that won't sit flat at all onto a tabletop. And I'm really hoping that doesn't have a problem. But that can happen. So I think I've got a little bit of glow going on here, but I want to make sure everything's glowing before I get this out of there so that I know the glaze is going to work out as best as I can manage on all of them. So I'm hoping to hold this temperature for a little while, get it to go just a little bit more. Almost there. Stick with me, it's about to get cool. Okay, here it comes. Let's just leave that. That's really hot. Okay. Moment of truth. Hot, hot, hot. Yeah. Woo. almost there. Uh-oh. That might mean that the lid is on there, but hopefully not too hard. Oh, come on. Okay. So now we cross our fingers. I've got a little bitty piece of the leaf. Sorry. I've got a little bitty piece of the leaf from his little coconut drink on the side that of course broke off in the transport to and from. So I'm just going to leave it on there. It won't make as much difference. It's just so little. I'll just glue it on when I'm done. It won't get the blackened carbon like all this yellow nasty that you're seeing coming out that I'm trying not to breathe. But it should still look similar to everything else. So I leave that in there for a little while. Let it do this reduction chamber thing. Let it burn for a bit. I've got my garden hose ready just in case. Got to be safe. That's why I'm in the middle of the driveway here, so I can't burn much. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna leave it here for just a few minutes, or a couple minutes or so here, really. Just let it cool down a bit so that when I throw it in here, it'll shock it but not explode. That's in theory, that's the idea anyway. So I can't put it directly into the water right after, because that's just way too fast to cool down, and it will literally explode. I've seen some pots just become a little grenade underwater. It's terrible. Yep. And that one pot that's all wonky and spiral kind of thing at the bottom, yeah, that's so thick walled at the bottom. It's not, you know, ridiculous thick, but it's way too heavy for anything of any reasonable skill to throw. That one really can't go in right away because that thickness is going to hold that heat for a lot longer. Heck, you can still see it glowing from underneath there. It's still super hot. But yeah, we're getting there. Stick with me for a little bit. As soon as I get it in the water and let it cool down in there for a few seconds, I can show you some really cool, basically I'll just dip some, let you see what it looks like for a minute before I let it do the water bath. Most of the times that you get the cracks, the crackle stuff that I was talking about, I was showing you a non-Raku glaze, but the picture on it anyway was doing that. Yep, that's what you did last time. But usually that's going to happen here when it gets exposed to the air and put into there. So it'll still crackle and get the smoke that I'm trying not to breathe here. It'll get the smoke inside of it. And that's where you get the black lines around it. Go away. For smaller and thinner things, it doesn't really take a whole lot of time in the reduction chamber, but bigger, thicker things, it takes quite a bit more time. Same reason, you don't want it to blow up when it gets in here. The big problem is it's really difficult to find things inside a burning pile of leaves. So, yeah. I'm basically going to be just fishing around for what I can grab with the tongs. Go away, smoke. Let's let it flame up a little. Ah, No outright bursts of flame. That's interesting. Here it comes. I thought you might like to see that. All right, now it'll reduce again. Normally you wouldn't want to do that, but I thought it might look cool on camera. You do want it to continue burning, of course, but as long as it's that hot, that's not a big problem. That's one of the problems with house fires. Oh sure, it looks like it's burned out and no big deal anymore. And then it just bursts back into flames eventually. It's pretty bad. Same kind of problem. That insulation. I really, really hope everything's okay. Nope, bad idea. You probably can't see the lines on there, but I was actually burning my glove instantly as I was touching the plate. Way too hot. I was thinking about picking that thing up and just putting it in the water, but no, not a good idea yet. I figured the exposure to the air and not having this insulation flame reduction chamber here might have cooled it enough, but no. That kiln shelf is holding a lot of heat. Whoops! Oh no! That's just my paper cover on the outside though. No big deal. The actual filter's back in here. So I'm impatient. Let's see what happens, right? I'm also paranoid. Here comes the flame. Except I don't have hardly anything left to burn in there, it looks like. I should put more in. Hey, thanks for the light. That makes things easier. Oh my gosh, the lid came off. I don't want to throw it in directly. Since the lid did pop off like it's supposed to, I'm really not wanting to blow it up. That didn't sound good. Yep, I see a crack in it. Ah, damn. That's what happens with Raku, though. Damn. Sorry, Kayla. That was a bad idea. Nope, it's not ready yet. Even the thin stuff, she throws really nice and thin. That should not have cracked yet. I think it may have been a symptom of the pressure from the lid on the top of it when it was heating and cooling, not letting it flex in and out very well. So when it was getting ready to stress enough to pop the lid off, it might have given it a fracture down the side too. So when I cooled it a little too quickly, probably, it kind of extended that crack as I felt and heard. So I'm going to let it sit there for a little longer. And I'll buy you a Coke next time I see you. Or burger or whatever you're into. Yep, slow. But on my end, it's a heck of a lot of fun anyway. It takes a while, but it's always fun to play with fire. Speaking of, in order to promote it cooling down a little bit more, without going too quickly, hopefully, I'm going to open the lid again. It's definitely had enough smoke. The lid was still filled. Boy, look at how blackened that is. Let's see how it works. What temperature are you still? Looks like you're still good enough to burn the leaves still. Yep. Okay, in that case, let's fill you with some more leaves. I don't want it to go too quickly, like I just proved was a bad deal. Though it's definitely a lot cooler. As you can tell, it's not just leaping with flames now. So that's a thing. Let that seep some more smoke in for a while. Yeah. Slow, not terribly exciting process, punctuated by brief moments of really exciting stuff. And then finish with utter disappointment or excitement. Usually both. And yes, Kayla, I am fully aware that the failure of the cylinder is all my fault, because after all, I'm the one that told you to practice making cylinders too. And lids, I told you to do. So it's all my fault, I know. And then I broke it. Ugh. Man, am I impatient. I don't know if you can hear the crickets and frogs going on, but that's pretty cool. It's nice. Kind of a shame I still hear car traffic in the background, but you know, that's the way that is. It's only 7:45 anyway. Saturday night. And what am I doing? I'm partying it up by making ceramic fires. That was a misstatement, but still accurate, I guess. Boy, am I getting thirsty. It shouldn't take this long, but I'm terrified to put them in there. Also, I'm all squinting at you because I'm looking at the time on there. It's been almost 37 minutes is all, but good on you, GoPro, for not stopping just after I start you like you keep doing to me. So yay for you for once. Boy. Oh, that's much less smoke now. Definitely cooler. I don't even see it glowing down there this time. I even see some dry leaves at the top, so that's probably a good sign. I'm not good at this enough, and I don't have homogeneous sizes and thicknesses of things enough to really do it too reliably. But if I were better at this, I'd be able to figure out exactly how much time I need it to be in the reduction chamber before I throw it into there, and kind of maximize the amount of shock I can get out of it without making the shock break the ceramic work. But I'd rather err on the slow side and the not as dramatic crackle stuff in favor of not completely and utterly destroying one of my students' work. But practice, that's what it's all about. The more times I do this, the more I'll know. Every kiln's different, every project's different, so it's not easy, but you get better with practice and trying over and over and over again. So let's see what we can get. Right? Right? Timing. You were just waiting for me to give up, weren't you? Weren't you? Since I was stupid enough to put that in the water first, shouldn't be a problem. But the way my day's going, I don't want to push my luck, so I'm just gonna let it burn off that water for a second. Oh yeah, you can see the crackle on the outside of that. I hear it kind of crackling a bit, but so I'm not going to push my luck. I'm just going to leave it in there for a little while. Crackling's not unusual. It's just what happens when it's cooling so quickly exposed to the air like that. But again, I already have a crack in it. I don't want it to fall apart. So I'm just going to let it cool much slower with it exposed like this. I shouldn't have to. I really shouldn't, but let's see what else I can find in there. I keep finding that same piece. No, I want to go the other way. There we go. you're sitting on top of that one. Okay. That's not going to come out of there very well then. Okay. Hot. Still hot. Please don't tell me I fused you together to something else. I think I'm actually trying to pick up his little coconut cup. It's hot. But there's my cheesy little thing. Put you back down in there for a little while, because you were at the very bottom there, burning like crazy. And that's the one that has the really thick bottom, so that would give you that explosion excitement on camera. I don't really want to go to the hospital though. Yep, it's slow. And I appreciate you hanging with me, even if you fast forwarded until you got to this point. That's cool. Kind of wish I could have. Man, I'd be so much more productive if I could do that. Oh, you have a rubber mold? Okay. Leave it overnight to cure? Okay, cool. No problem. Fast forward. Done. Okay. You have an electric kiln to fire. It's going to take about 24 hours before you can unload everything. Okay. Skip. Fire's burning down pretty good. I just have some glowing ashes and things down there. Probably still hot enough to light up some new leaves if I put them in there. But at this point I've put so much smoke into it and it's had so much time, there's not likely any reason for it. The breeze has been a lot nicer to me. I haven't had to put this on over and over and over again like I did last time. Or like I wanted to, or needed to last time. So, while we wait, I'm not going to tell you another story. That was interesting. Thump. I live in Missouri at the moment, and we also have some really strange tales and reports of what's called booger dogs. You might have seen me sketch those. I haven't had the chance to sculpt it yet for the small sculpture, but booger dogs, same background as Boogeyman. Boogeyman is very frequently also called Boogerman. Not meaning nose boogers, but still a scary kind of creature is the idea. The booger dogs, though, are big dogs, like you hear in the background here. Big, giant, almost, like huge, varying different sizes in their reports. But they're always terrifying for some reason. It's difficult, it seems, for people to wrap their head around exactly why it was so terrifying. Sometimes they talk about claws and things like that, but they also say that they don't have any kind of head that they can make out. So it's this really disturbing abnormality and some sort of impossibility to this creature, this monster that seems to be stalking people or things, animals or whatever, late at night. But what does it do with them? How can it possibly see anything? It can't possibly eat anything, could it? But it has to, right? Yeah. Booger dogs. I very frequently don't tell you stories. Because a story, as you've probably heard me say over and over again by now, a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But that's not how folklore monsters work. Most of them don't have any kind of an origin part of the story. Nobody knows where these things came from, what they were before, if they were some sort of a new thing or what. Nobody knows. And almost never do we have an end to them because we just don't know. And there's no way to have an end to something that you have only glimpsed in passing. And that's usually what folklore creatures are. Typically reports or long passed down stories. People telling about seeing something that they didn't quite understand, or something that couldn't have been but somehow was. But never anything that we really understand well. Dear goodness, it is so dark in there now. And I can't find anything but the big one. And the one with the thick bottom that I don't want to pull out yet. So, yep, there goes the flame again. Okay, it really should have been plenty of time by now. Yep, there's a crack in it, unfortunately. But it is cool anyway. Good thing is, crack won't make any difference for holding water. Not for drink anyway. Can you hear it? Bubbling, boiling water. Bubbling brew. There we go. I can just see it from the glow of the embers. There's her little one that I'm hoping not to explode. I didn't think it would. But it was on the very bottom there. Oh sure, I can find hers, but all I can find of mine is the really big thing. Wait a minute. I think that's the only two things else I had in there, except pieces that I'm going to have to sift through ashes for. Like his foot, the back of his hand. You know, the lid. There's that. That's important. Forgot about that, duh. That was causing some fun boiling. Still is. Where is... I can't see it anymore. Is that the thick bottom, nasty. Yep, there he is. Well, it didn't blow up, so obviously I waited probably a lot longer than I needed to. But that's the idea. Now, big guy won't fit in there with everybody else. So I'll have to, well, he might if I rearrange things. They really only need to be in there long enough to cool down a bit. There's the big guy. So, taking bets on whether this is going to explode. I hope not. It's been way too long for that to be a problem, I would hope. You can't fit in. Not quite. Not quite. Almost. I need a bigger vessel if I'm going to make bigger things than this. Okay, fine. Be that way then. We'll just see how much I can get down in there. Oh, I broke his arm. Well, that'll get it down in there. Yeah, that happens sometimes too. Most likely what that was, I mean, it was a pretty cantilevered piece to begin with, so it was a little bit risky on how thin it was to begin with. Most likely what happened was that when I had to transport it back and forth, especially likely back to the studio after I finished with it, the bouncing in the car probably gave it a little fracture, just a little hairline crack in it that I had no idea was there. And then when it bisque fired, it wasn't bad enough to fall apart or anything, thankfully, but me manhandling it and the shock of the water cooling it was enough to do it. So yeah, live and learn. Next time start from not having to transport things due to a pandemic. That would be helpful. So unfortunately, this poor guy is going to have some repair work, and I'll probably make another one at some point. Just because I'd really rather not have a janky, broken and glued back together centerpiece. So they've been in there a little while, so I'm going to add a little more water. Let it cool just a little bit. I don't want to go too much because the water has been warming. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm just wanting to cool it down so that I can show you. Why am I wearing the glove? Water's not cold or hot enough to be a problem for that. But my trash can's still pretty hot still, apparently. What do you think? Look at that. All that burnt leaf stuff. Well, that ought to cool them down enough to see what I can show you. Kind of hard to tell in this light, but see if I can expose. Whoop! Just make everything go crazy, huh? Forget it. Let's try this. There you go. Check that out. Is that cool or what? All the fine little cracks in it there, and then 2 different colors there. Beautiful stuff. I have no idea how it's still steaming so much. Because I am definitely not feeling hot water right now. But boy, is that cool. Okay, there's one. Let's just lean that there so I can pick it up and show you the next piece. There's his arm. Oh well. But yeah, there's his white crackles. Boy, oh okay. I was gonna say, oh no, what happened to all my glaze? But it's not, it just needs to be cleaned up. Yeah, that's gonna be really nice. Too bad we're looking at something that'll be very difficult to glue back. I'll probably have to figure something out, because that's not good. Got 2 points to attach. That's good. Obviously, I didn't score that well enough. But that's part of my problem, obviously. And how about the tall, skinny cylinder with, unfortunately, a crack in it? Holy cow. Looks like it had... Oh, no, that's just glaze crack. Cool. So, here's her white crackle. Needs to be cleaned up. You get rid of all this nasty black stuff with just a brush. But yeah, I'll show us, rotate it around. You see a crack down that side. It's a shame. It's a very, very straight vertical crack. It starts making me wonder if it has something to do with construction too. I'll have to talk to her, see how she did it. Because this is obviously thrown on the wheel. That's an odd thing to break like that. Makes for a cowbell though. Let's see if we can find other pieces. Here's her lid. Should have brought a brush out here so I could clean these up so you can see them better. But yeah, that'll be nice. Yeah. It fits on still nice and cleanly. Look at that. Yeah, I'm betting it was the stress of it being fired together. It's the way it's supposed to be, but I think it made the Raku speed of the firing process being so fast that it probably allowed one of the two parts to expand in the heat faster, and then also shrink a lot faster too. And that right there is probably the big problem. Whoop. Oh yeah, there's his foot. Hey, I didn't have to go digging for that after all. And I wanted subtle, but you can't see any of the color at all that I put on there. Oh well, you can see the black underglaze that I did with it to some degree. But unfortunately, some of it's being counteracted by the clear glaze, because it's getting milky and because it's thicker in those cracks, and it's kind of counteracting it. But yeah, it's still live and learn. Yeah, It's okay. It'll be a good trial. I forgot about his tongue is in there too, come to think of it. In the trash can still. Now that is going to be hot still, so I'm not going to go for it yet. Not with my hand. So, this guy had the same glaze color as the big bowls that I used. I think what I'm learning from looking at this is that I put it. I should probably leave it on the kiln shelf for a little while before I throw it into the leaves, because I think what I'm seeing for texture on here is the stems of the leaves are messing up the glass before it burns away. So yeah, I'm getting some texture from leaves in there, and that's kind of unfortunate, but good test before I do the bigger, better pieces tomorrow. So yeah, look at that. Don't you love the black of the open clay with the carbon in it? Oh, I love it. Speaking of, you can tell that it wasn't broken before it got in there. It was only partially cracked because the carbon couldn't get to all that. So it was only some of it that was broken, and then me just messing with it too much in there, trying to get it in there, was what did the problem. So in order to find those in there, I'm going to do this. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. If it's gonna explode here, there's no way I should have been putting it in there, so. See if that's enough to cool it down enough to grab it out of there. Nope, that's hot. But I know where it is. That might be enough to grab it with the tongs. It's just hot enough that I don't think I could get it over to the water with my fingers. Yep, there's a tongue. I have no idea what else is in there. The back of his hand, right. I'll have to clean that up tomorrow. There it is. There's the back of his hand. That, for some reason, I think because I left it out on there just a little longer, it didn't crackle as much. Whew. Okay, the thicker part of that's still a little warm. So I'm going to go to the edges. But yeah, it's not bad. Just one of my parts to my tiki kit that I'm making, apparently. Build your own tiki. Oh well. I think that's everything. But I'll sift through the nasty stuff tomorrow. Well, that's still really, really hot, obviously. So I'm dripping water on this little guy, hoping that I can pick it up. is not easy to move that with a glove. And then I dropped it. Oh well. Alrighty, so that's it for now. You've been with me for over an hour, and ooh geez, yeah, just over an hour now. So I'm gonna let you go, and I'm amazed that my battery's still going. So I'll cut this off here and clean stuff up and get everything ready for tomorrow, and I'll set up another firing tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see less breakage. Oh geez, I hope so. Poor Kayla, I'm so sorry. See you soon.